Yeah, we're on Rumble, we're on X, we're on YouTube. I
Yeah,
was like just
I
pressing the
wish you could have
buttons.
warned me. Oh well.
Yeah. Well, anyways, hello everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this show. It's been a very interesting, about a month. I think it's actually been a month since we did our last episode. We've both been sort of busy doing other things in life, but there's been definitely an interesting week in the Middle East. Don't know if anyone was expecting the fast pace of change and conflict within the area. Obviously, Iran and Israel have been exchanging missiles.
Mm.
Trump has bombed nuclear sites. Iran has retaliated against American bases, and now they've all got a ceasefire within the span of like 2 weeks. So it was a pretty crazy 2 weeks. Do you want to add more to that, Gilbert?
Yeah, well, I just say, yeah, been very crazy, been very wild. There's a lot to unpack from this situation. There's so many different parts to look at the situation from to truly understand what is going on here and why this has happened. And it's important to get the full, 1,000-foot view of this whole conflict, because a lot of people, and it's important to get all angles of this because a lot of people don't understand what is going on really with this whole thing, and this is indicative of so many different things that are, yes, of course, happening in the Middle East with the various regime changes, but also in the West with you know s- cult, counter currents and counter cultures and counter political movements, and there's a lot of subterfuge and deception in our own countries, basically, that I just don't feel like people really recognize, and so this is it's it's good to sometimes just let things happen and let things cool down and because there was so much going on that it would have actually been hard to have gotten everything straight while it was
Oh, it
happening.
would have been impossible.
Oh yeah, I mean a lot of writers, had to say like, okay, this is happening, and then they had to do a complete 180 and say, actually, now, that like some writers had to like keep editing their original articles because, yeah, as you say, things were going on all the time. So I can just give a quick rundown, unless you want to
Yeah,
say
give us
anything
the
more.
rundown.
Yeah, so just to ground everyone, yeah, so Iran has experienced, but also Israel, significant turmoil and conflict, um, especially Iran with its relations with Israel and the US. So a 12-day war erupted between Israel and Iran, which included Israeli airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities and other strategic targets. The conflict resulted in numerous casualties, including the deaths of over 30 senior Iranian security officials and 11 nuclear scientists, as claimed by an American Israeli military official. Excuse me. In response to these attacks, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Arakchi indicated that Tehran might reject any requests by the International Atomic Energy Agency for visits to Iranian nuclear sites, signaling a potential increase in secrecy and its nuclear program, which is very possible. So, um, yeah, the United States became directly involved when President Donald Trump, authorized strikes on three key Iranian nuclear facilities: Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, using bunker-busting bombs and cruise missiles. And the satellite imagery that we've all probably analyzed by now has actually shown significant damage to these sites, apparently, particularly Fordow, which is, Iran's most critical nuclear enrichment facility. It's its most important. So while US officials acknowledged that these strikes severely damaged but did not completely destroy the facilities, the attacks are believed to have set back Iran's nuclear program by years, unless, of course, hidden facilities exist. Um,
I'm pretty sure they would have known if there was any hidden facilities. The Iranian intelligence, from what we've seen, has not been that good.
mm,
So
mm,
has not been as complicated as some people may have thought.
yeah, yeah, and the US technology is just so far ahead of anyone else, it seems. So
Mm,
it's difficult for them to, despite their best efforts to avoid what they viewed as the inevitable. Yeah, it's
yeah.
yeah, um, but so Iran so, following the ceasefire, Iran launched a sweeping crackdown on suspected Israeli intelligence operatives and foreign agents. Iranian authorities reportedly arrested over 700 individuals linked to what they described as an Israeli spy network.
I wonder how much of those are actually like Mossad and how much of those are just like political opponents.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Because there are probably genuinely people who are,
Oh, there absolutely is. Yeah.
mm, yeah, facing repression.
The Iranian regime is actually, I don't think, that popular with the majority of the Iranian population, just because
Yeah.
of economic problems, corruption, slow
Oh yeah.
economic growth, cost of living increases. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
think it's actually that popular with the Iranian people, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it's more factionalized than people probably realize within Iran, and yeah, there are people who are concerned with freedom, and there are people who are concerned with the corruption, of course, and yeah, but and then there are those who are likely loyal to the regime, and but of course, it is a repressive regime, so
Well, the only
the,
way to get ahead in Iran is to basically be loyal to the regime. Like that's because of the corruption and
yeah.
kickbacks within the political system. Like that's the
Mm.
easiest way to get ahead is just be part of it, be part of the regime. Like you see
Mm,
this in all sorts of authoritarian one-party states.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally, totally. Yeah, harkens back to yeah, their revolutionary legacy of overthrowing the Shah in a communist revolution. But
Mm.
yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, there are reports of executions, increased repression targeting journalists, activists, and dual nationals. With some families of detained individuals pleading for proof of life after an Israeli strike hit Tehran's Evin prison. So Amnesty International reported that Iran continued to violate human rights and after the conflict, including arbitrary detentions, unfair trials, and the use of the death penalty as a tool of political repression. Um, the judiciary, which lacked independence, played a central role in entrenching impunity for torture and other crimes under international law. So, I mean, there you go. Amnesty International is, you know, they they've criticized Israel in the past, but they're also criticizing Iran, as we can see here. So that's something for perhaps everybody to recognize.
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly like Amnesty International, but they do seem to at least somewhat stick to their worldview. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, people will say, "Oh, they're a left-wing
I mean, they sort of are,
organization."
to be honest.
Oh yeah. Oh well, sure, sure. But yeah, and they're filled with these people, and well, they likely are, and well, they are. And that's actually something we can get into in relation to this whole thing. Um, yeah, regarding the 1,000 foot view, that when it comes back to what we do as people listening to this stream or whatever. But we can unpack that later, because Hector and I always like to bring it back down to us, at everybody on the ground level. But yeah, I think it's important to recognize that, because they're like leftists, they're liberal progressives, but they do seem to criticize, yeah, both regimes, I suppose you could say. Um,
That's fair.
so, yeah, yeah. So in the aftermath of the war, Iran also experienced a surge in oil exports to China, when reached record highs in June 2025, as shipments accelerated before the conflict and independent Chinese refineries increased demand. Meanwhile, tensions with the US remain high. The with Trump stating he would consider bombing Iran again if uranium enrichment levels became worrisome, and Iran denying any planned meetings with the US government. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran has brought temporary relief, but concerns remain about its durability. Vessels near the Strait of Hormuz have been broadcasting unusual messages in an effort to avoid attacks, indicating lingering uncertainty about the stability of the truce. So that's kind of part of me. Everything that has happened so far, to date, that's everything that's very briefly sort of transpired. We will see what happens to the Strait of Hormuz, and we'll see how long the ceasefire lasts. Because we have heard, the Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz kind of echoing the sentiment of Donald Trump. So the Israeli Defense Minister Israeli Katz saying that he has instructed the IDF to implement the Lebanon model in Iran, where even after the ceasefire, the IDF will continue striking targets as it sees as potential threats. So, and
Well, that's not
there have
really
been,
that's not a ceasefire, is it? If you continue to fire.
well, yeah, exactly. So I mean, and they've been the sentiment has been echoed in Israel with other reports as well. But I mean, this is kind of the thing, isn't it? Is like people are saying Trump is the peacemaker. He's a great hero that's ending all these wars. That's not really. I don't think that's true. I think people. I can't imagine people actually relaxing because of this ceasefire, or but a lot of people do just listen to the TV, as we all know. Um, but yeah, they are planning to continue this campaign. They're probably just recalibrating because Israel did get hit hard. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Go ahead, go ahead.
what the heck? Oh, my phone just
Oh,
started
sorry.
playing random things.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Go on.
I
Sorry.
heard some Israeli in the background there. You were talking to someone. No, joking, joking. Yeah. What was I just saying? Actually, I can't
It's like
remember.
rhetoric like this isn't really what you'd expect from people that want to negotiate a ceasefire. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. It's all. Yeah, this isn't. They're
I
not
mean, I mean,
interested.
Israel's keeping up their like warlike, saber rattling rhetoric, while
That's right.
Iran is not committing to any sort of nuclear deal. So if it continues like that, the ceasefire is not going to last very long.
No, and I mean Israel is like fully committed to this. They called up Iranian scientists and generals and I think intelligence people, and they sent them letters, basically saying to them, if you do not cooperate with the Mossad and with the aims of the IDF, we'll kill your families, basically. So they, as usual, they are incredibly resolute to a very savage degree, to make sure. I mean, really, what they're doing is they are trying, and this is typical Israeli tactics, where they try to basically uh, threaten and destabilize, and then try to eat a given regime's uh, forces from the inside out. To try and yeah, strike top intelligence officers, generals, senior military officials, the like. So this is what I think they were hoping to do with this, is to wage a campaign of terror. This is what I believe was the point of all this, with Israel embarking on this, is to basically terrorize Iran. Use, rather than just the bombs, which does seem to have worked out quite well in their favor. But I think they were perhaps, it was a gambit where they hoped to set off a chain of events that would have led to the overthrow of the Ayatollah Khomeini and of the current regime ruling there. And I think we can see that the regime is stronger than perhaps
Oh,
the.
yeah. I don't. I mean, you can't change regimes by dropping a couple bombs. That's basically impossible.
Mm,
You need like a actual, like. There's no viable opposition in Iran.
mm. Yeah, right, right. Yeah, yeah, and making threats. I guess they thought they'd give it a shot, but
That was
yeah,
never
I
going
mean,
to happen. That was like a pipe dream. There was never going to be a regime change in Iran without any sort of credible opposition to actually fight against the regime. Just dropping bombs wasn't going to do that.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I think they did try, but
Hmm.
well, that's what I read. But yeah, that's quite a toll. You're certainly right. It does take a lot more than just that, right?
Yeah, a couple
To,
Well, I mean, it was more than a couple. It was like dozens of assassinations, but
mm,
they didn't. The supreme leader was fine. Yeah, there's still dozens and dozens more top officials that are in the
mm,
Iranian regime. So there was never going to be regime change with any sort of Israeli or American bombing. Seems very unlikely.
yeah, totally, totally. So yeah, they tried that, and that um yeah, I mean, some might argue that this has actually solidified the Iranian regime. So it could have. I mean, it's. I mean, and it'll be interesting to see what the Europeans do with the in response to all of this, because they're involved with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, also known as the Iran nuclear deal, the agreement to limit the Iranian nuclear program in return for sanctions relief and other provisions. And so this is sort of the pickle that I guess Iran is in, but also the United States and Israel, I suppose you could say, in a way, um, because while they want sanctions relief. Of course, seeing the Iranians viewing how all these Middle Eastern nations have been toppled and overthrown in a very kind of aggressive way. Of course, they are very fearful themselves, as one might as a group of people might be. Um, like especially after Libya,
Yes.
there's and Lebanon, um, where they've uh, attempt these kind of tactics and techniques on them, and many other such places. They
Syria, but I guess Syria, I mean, the opposition there is, at least for now, somewhat coherent, but we'll
mm,
see. Uh,
mm,
So,
mm.
could you mention the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action? Do you think it was a mistake for the US to withdraw from that in 2018? Is that what led to this whole thing in the first place? Because the US withdrawing, they pretty much, some people say it opened the door for Iran to restart their nuclear program.
Yeah, well, the thing is that I mean, yeah, how the whole point I think is, how do you reassure that they are going to not enrich their nuclear weapons? But the ultimate argument to that, I think, or line of reasoning to that is that, well, I mean, first off, I mean, how do you? I mean, a lot of I think good resolutions were provided, like having inspectors from all over the world come and inspect their nuclear enrichment capabilities and ensure that it is only used for civilian purposes, which was one that I thought was quite good. But you could take this back as long as you want. Really, I mean, it's it's to prevent the proliferation of nuclear uh, weapons throughout the world, which is the United States goals. But
Yeah, which is a
yeah, but
fair goal. I think we can agree with that.
yeah, I think that's, yeah, totally fair. I think actually a lot of other nations should go without nuclear weapons. If I'm
Yeah, like Israel.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I don't think really. Yeah, yeah. Well, like Israel, exactly, exactly. So, I mean,
I mean, the Israel doesn't get any IAEA inspections, so
mm,
I mean that
well,
could potentially be a negotiating point. Potentially both of them can get inspected, right? You know,
yes.
in a perfect world, but
Mm,
unfortunately we don't live in a perfect world.
Quite right, quite right. Yeah, so I mean that would be good, but yeah, don't live in a perfect world. Um, yeah, as to whether it opened the door for that, I mean, I think what causes anybody to rush into getting nukes is a feeling of insecurity, and yeah, hmm, maybe I shouldn't get into that actually. That'll
Well, I
take a
mean,
long
there could
time.
be arguments for. I mean, I don't think these like developing nations should have nukes. I think that's a terrible idea. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
like Pakistan or India should have nukes or Iran, but it's like you could argue, developed nations like Japan or Germany or Poland could have them. But that's
Mhm.
there's arguments for both sides, but I don't see much of an argument for like unstable second world developing countries to have any nuclear weapons. That's just they're just not on a level. They don't have that level of responsibility that they should have because their nations, it's in their name. They're not developed. They can't. They shouldn't be having these weapons of
Yeah.
mass destruction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Completely agree. Completely agree. Yeah. I mean, there's just no. Yeah, and even to oversee something like that would be quite difficult. Even though some one of Trump's secretaries proposed that the real estate developer guy, Stephen Witkoff.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and that whole thing was a total debacle. Them trying to negotiate their way out of
Yeah.
that, but yeah,
So
go ahead.
with the ceasefire, you'd expect like the base level American demand would be for these inspections to restart, and it seems like at this point Iran is resisting against that. So I think if like Iran doesn't agree to that key term within the next couple of weeks, the ceasefire is probably going to fall apart,
Mm,
and you'll see a restarting of potentially American and Israeli strikes within Iran again.
no, yeah, oh yeah, no, they're committed, and I mean, this is the whole reason why I believe, well, I should say I suspect, but I also believe that Donald Trump was elected where before um, certain corporate circles, people will call it certain establishment figures and groups saw that they weren't garnering the support for the left, as evidenced by the October 7th protests on university campuses. So quite quickly after that, you do notice that there's a sudden surge of support for Trump and the Republican. Maybe not so much Trump, certainly Trump, but the Republican Party at large. And there is, I noticed, this kind of quick switch to the Republican Party because they know that Republicans are more favor of these big military ventures in the Middle East and abroad, or they tend to be, and that is evidenced by the fact that so many Democrats actually came over to the Republican side and actually even supported Donald Trump themselves, even though they were never Trumpers, and there were
Well, like JD Vance.
well, like, yep, JD Vance. JD Vance. There were also certain billionaires and like WhatsApp billionaire group chats, um, and that actually helped quash the protests at these universities, and you had various laws being passed, and anti-Semitism laws, and
Yeah, it's like
various things.
those need to go up against the Supreme Court. It's like, come on.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, that's how crazy it got. So, so I mean, I think that's evidence enough to indicate that you know Trump. That's why Trump is here, and that's why they got him. I mean, this is what they got him to do. And if you look back, you can see that this has been a plan in the making for quite some time. If you go back to the clean
Yeah.
break memo. Oh, sorry, you
I
don't want
just,
to go there yet?
oh, no, just because we're talking about opinion polls. So if you look at
Sure,
the
sure.
opinion polls that have, been conducted since about the ceasefire is finished, yeah, it's
Mm.
looking, yeah, Trump's doing a lot better than he was earlier in the month. So, I mean,
Mm.
there is a bit of a spread there. So it looks like that has turned at least some favor towards Trump over the last week, but it's still sort of early days. So, but I
Yeah.
assume it will.
Mm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it probably. I mean, but it'll be interesting to see, how quickly they'll drop him. And it seems on that there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of rumor that actually JD Vance is going to be that they're prepping him to be the next president.
Oh, I think that's obvious.
Yeah.
I
Oh
think,
yeah. I mean, they really like him. I mean, if you look at the Trump regime or the Trump admin so far, it's pretty clear that how they're orienting the Trump admin, especially with the likes of donors like Miriam Adelson, and it's pretty clear that JD Vance perfectly suits that mold with everything that he's been saying and everything that he's supported before. So that's something to consider, that there's still this deep entrenchment of we're really I mean it really is like the Republican Party almost completely being consumed by Democratic or they're becoming kind of more similar as time goes on rather than different. I think
yes.
everybody can see that. So um, yeah, given that, I mean, it's I think a lot of people realize now that the Trump admin is by no means, though, is this what I'm about to say next is to indicate or to imply that we are the majority in thinking this. We're not. We're an extreme minority because a lot of people actually supported these strikes. And well, I my view on this whole thing is a lot more complex, but yeah, by no means is Trump the sort of savior that everybody was making him out to be, and the more keen political observers, I think, see that now. Whether everyone else sees that themselves is a big question mark. I don't think they do, but it's important to acknowledge that because it just shows how much of our work that we have cut out for us. As if we take it to what do we do, everybody listening to this, in our daily lives, and how we encourage others, to break out of what is
Well,
yeah,
I
quite
mean,
a scary thing. I mean, I'll just say this before you go, Hector, that through all this, I just want to preface whatever we talk about next, that as we've discussed with Jeff Kay of Western Allies Resistance before, the United States, to me, is quite clearly giving rise to another empire. It's feeding an empire that will eventually consume itself. It consumed the United States, is what I believe, and I believe we can already see that happening for the past several decades. But go ahead, Hector.
yeah, I'm just saying, like, with this over the last week or so, stuff.co.nz is not a particularly pro-Trump right-wing. No, it's not even close. It's a pretty left-wing publication, but they're going, "This is Donald Trump's best week ever." He's done the impossible. He's peace in the Middle East. He's increased NATO spending. He keeps getting all these wins in the Supreme Court. So, I mean, the average perception of this week, the last couple of weeks for Trump has been that it's been a very good month.
Mm, mm. Yeah, totally. Which is, yeah, again, very interesting to hear from stuff. To say that that's probably like the only positive article that they've ever done for him.
Yeah, I
Uh,
can't think of any other ones. That's crazy. I actually saw this and I was like, wow.
so that's
Even stuff saying it.
Yeah, so that's really saying something, everybody. Yeah, for those who don't know, stuff is like a very mainstream. What would you call it? Like very left. Uh,
Yeah, left wing
yeah,
publication. Like it's
it's,
like the
it's a globalist.
CNN of New Zealand,
That's
basically.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, basically like that. So yeah,
liberal
that's
left.
yeah, right. Corporate kind of yeah. Um, so yeah, that's so everybody's saying this, but again, it just goes to show, will this last? How long will this last for? And that's I don't honestly, it could be that you know, another missile exchange happens before the end of this year, or even there could be a huge military campaign launched to clear the way to invade Iran. They certainly would like to, and again,
There's a lot of factions that would, but I don't know. I feel like actually invading Iran might be a step too far because Trump's. You've been hearing it for years now. Like Trump and even Biden and Obama wanted to shift away from the Middle East towards Asia, right? And they keep getting all these things popping up where they keep having to move their focus away from Asia every single time.
yeah, that's right, and they're trying to posture towards Asia because, well, yeah, we know why China's mobilizing very aggressively in the Pacific. Um, but yeah, right. I mean that you know rates of military intake have increased exponentially, with a lot more people entering the military with the advent of the second Trump administration. But yeah, whether that's it is it's difficult to say, isn't it? Because Iran would be that would be a huge undertaking. Um,
Oh yeah, it would be like Afghanistan times 10. It would be
yeah,
basically it'd be nearly impossible, I think. So
yeah. I mean, the thing is though is that I see they really I see them as really wanting this like bad. So I'm not going to rule it out. I think they really want to I think they really want to try and cripple Iran. That because the Iran is like the last thing standing in their in the way of the U.S.-Israeli foreign policy agenda for the Middle East, and there's a lot kind of hanging on this. So it's
yeah,
I
it
know what you
does.
mean. I do totally know what you mean, but yeah, we'll see. All I'm saying is we'll see. But I think this is kind of the entire point of this administration, if you ask me. I would dare to say that, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I see this as being very purposeful. Let's say this administration, and I see Trump as being that answer for the establishment, uh, for the U.S. Israeli establishment. That sort of group of people. I'm saying, whoever may be concerned. So, and perhaps if it's not done within the Trump administration, they'll attempt to get Vance. I mean, that's the thing. It could happen. I see them as really wanting to do this. Like, so it could be several years down the track when
Oh, it's not
Vance
going to be
is
like it's
president.
not going to be next week. I mean, that would be impossible.
No, the U.S. is just not ready. I think for that level of and it just wouldn't really make a whole lot of so it could be like Vance that they're probably trying to ramp up their military intakes to try to expand the military, but yeah, I
Well, I
mean,
mean, the
mm,
the change in rhetoric of the Trump administration has brought the recruiting numbers in the U.S. Armed Forces, oh well, at least the U.S. Army, to decade-long highs.
there you go, so that's
So
yeah,
the
mm,
rhetoric's definitely resonating with a lot of people.
yeah, that's right, and yeah, I think there's a purpose for that, and maybe that's a plan later on down the line. So it's yeah, I mean this goes beyond Trump, though. That
Oh, of
this is
course.
yeah. I mean, like people are saying, it's so funny to see the hypocrisy of a lot of people on the right, and people saying that the original members of MAGA, of America First MAGA, are like woke right now. If you don't
What?
support
Oh,
these,
woke
yeah,
right.
I mean, the whole premise of MAGA and America First was this sort of, um, broadly anti-war rhetoric, where mainly it was attuned to war in the Middle East. They didn't want a continuation of regime change in the Middle East, which is, and you can't really blame people for that. But all of a sudden, you're woke right,
Oh, woke right is just a term that doesn't mean
It's so
anything.
gay, man. Yeah, but yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? But
Wasn't
that's
there
what.
like a New Zealand politician? Wasn't it like David Seymour talking about the woke right or something supposedly like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, that's right, because they had the guy who coined the phrase woke right, James Lindsay.
He sort
Uh,
of, I mean, have we had? Yeah, James has sort of lost it, to be honest.
yeah, well, yeah, yeah, he's fallen off, man. He's fallen off. Yeah, he's I see him. He's like dancing around with like a huge Chinese broadsword in his driveway, and he's
Yeah, I
like
haven't seen that.
he's like, he just- okay, so I'll be serious now. I'll be serious now. It's just kind of funny, like to see. Yeah. Anyway, for another conversation, but yeah, it's funny just how quickly the rhetoric of the Republican establishment um, and any other media changes to. It just goes to show, right, that they're not as should be apparent with what we've experienced with this administration so far it should be apparent to everybody now that yeah, they're not vested in America first and MAGA America first interests. It's still very much the GOP corporate establishment that is calling the shots. If people, and it's evidenced by, you know oh, you're all just a bunch of woke right people if you don't support war, this continuation of war in the Middle East, which is what a lot of people,
Well,
disaffected conservatives and Republicans came to Trump under the idea that Trump was going to be this figure who was going to stop all this. Go ahead.
yeah, it's just. Oh, actually, I've sort of lost my train of thought. Sorry.
I'll,
Yeah,
I'll, I'll
keep
just
going,
I'll
keep going.
just keep talking
Yeah,
until you remember. Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah. So I mean that this is kind of the thing, and to see there's like people like Charlie Kirk and so many different conservatives, Matt Walsh, um, saying all this stuff. Like it's so important that we nail this down and identify this now, because so many of them, there was a time people might remember when people like Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire and Charlie Kirk from TPUSA, these sort of basic conservatives who really aren't like conservative at all. Like there's a point where like Charlie Kirk was like pro tranny or something. So, um, but
Yeah, back in like 2015, it's like, oh yeah, we should let trannies be part of the conservative movement. It's like, well, luckily he's sort of fallen away from that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, but has he really?
yeah, true.
But I mean, at least as is apparent, he seems to have stopped that. Talking to Lady Maga, but, more like man Lady Maga. But anyway, that's just so weird, man. Um, but yeah, it's yeah. I mean, his rhetoric changed so much. They had to change their rhetoric because for a while they were basically like turbo liberals, these Republicans. But over the years, as they came under actual conservative scrutiny from their conservative base, from their base of supporters, why do you? I mean, we all saw the sort of the Groiper War, the fabled Groiper War, that they carried out on against Benny Johnson and Charlie Kirk, and they just
Correct.
slam dunked them. Yeah, everybody remembers that, and yeah, ever since then they've kind of made it a point to like posture themselves as being like what would you call it, like
Like
pro
adopting
white.
yeah, pro-white nationalist talking points instead of just
Yeah.
neocon talking points about the tax cuts and
Mm,
everyone can be an American or everyone can be a X country,
yeah.
ex-Western country, like that sort of stuff that you'd seen for at this point like half a century.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, and this is what we're talking about. Like, it's important to understand this hypocrisy we're seeing, because it's a hypocrisy we're seeing amongst many who were pretending to be America first, who postured themselves as being nationalists, racists, quote unquote based, pro-white, pro-Western,
Yeah.
this sort of stuff. Really, they're just skin suiting it. They've just been pretending all along, and it's not that they agree with us all of a sudden. They have changed their image to real people in, and to curry favor with the masses of the Trump supporting base, to basically siphon their support when they're not really like that. And and I mean, this is why we got, the Indian Hindu lady going winga wah wah at the GOP. She was chanting in uh, some Hindu chants, and this is yeah. I'm not. Yeah, my Hindu's not too good, as you can probably tell if you speak Hindu. That
I
is.
thought that was perfect.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah. It's almost like we were there. Yeah, but yeah. I mean, they're going to. It's important to understand that they're not here for us. They're not here. I mean, the Trump movement has taken a completely different shade, and these people are not it, and they're going to continue with this until the next election and the next one, until America is completely unrecognizable, or completely ceases to exist entirely. I mean, that is their real modus operandi. People at Daily Wire, or Matt Walsh, Charlie Kirk, all these, JD Vance, all these people, they're not for Americans. And in this very event that we experienced, it was like, when asked about you know um, whether, when the strikes, the build up, and then the strikes started happening, it's like, oh, we Trump isn't going to do it. He's not going to strike Iran. Baloney. Then there's a build up happening, and it looks like it's going to happen. Oh, we shouldn't we should defend Israel, but we shouldn't do any like military incursions or act on the offense on their behalf. And then when they start bombing them, they say, well, we just shouldn't have boots on the ground. It's this constant progression that these kinds of people are trying to funnel you through to get your support, to make sure that them and their movement and their money and their jobs remain buoyant, when really I'm having trouble distinguishing between them and the Democrats. And that this is the case across the world, even in New Zealand. I see no difference really between National Labor or ACT, and
The Greens.
ultimately, yeah. Ultimately, it's the same thing, and this is something that people have got to kind of get hip to. And people will ask, well, what do you propose? And well, if you identify that they're really no different from the Democrats, and they're quite frankly just as destructive, I mean, um, then I mean, you've got to extract concessions from them. You can't give them the assurance that you're going to vote for these people to ensure that they have another, a job for the next couple of years or so. You've got to ensure that you know that they are working for you, and quite, they're quite happy to just say these things and go, oh, they're going to vote for us out of fear of the Democrats, are going to, you know, come after them with, uh, cross dressers or something.
Well, I mean, to be
Um,
fair, the Democrats have been spectacularly bad, so
yeah,
I can't really blame people, to be honest.
it is scary, but I
Yeah.
mean, that's the sort of problem, reaction, solution. I'm not saying, yeah, vote for the Democrats, of course, but I think leading up to the second Trump administration, people should have been aware of that, and when we were going into it, people should have been cognizant of that. And going forward, the base needs to be aware that they're constantly chopping and changing um, how they look like to you in order to get your support. But that they're, you've got to be, basically, people have to be harder on these people and not cut them so much slack and
Yeah,
give you so
I
many
absolutely agree with
concessions.
that. I mean, yeah,
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 they need to start cutting us concessions and cutting us
yes,
a lot of slack. That's the whole point. These public representatives are meant to work for you. So I think not the other way around. You know, you don't work for them. So people need to look at this administration and go, what are we doing? Like what's the point at this point now? And
yeah.
really think about this very hard. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
the
just leave that.
Republican Party should be giving, the American voters concessions, not like APAC.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, and that's really sad. Isn't that amazing in that Tucker versus Cruz debate? You know, as bad as as much as I dislike Tucker, but Cruz had he
Oh man,
literally
you think it
said, "I
would?
was elected to the Senate to be the defender of Israel."
Oh,
It's
it's like,
like,
come. It's when you hear stuff like that, it's just, come on, buddy, what are you doing?
well, yeah. It's like goodness
It's
gracious
a shame
me.
because
Yeah,
I've heard
shaking
Ted
my head.
Cruz say some good stuff about like big tech and stuff in the background, and then he just says like the most absolutely insane stuff when it comes to supplying weapons to nations in the Middle East. It's like, what is going on here?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And yeah, and I mean, not to say that I'm backing Tucker and that at all. I mean, he just parrots like basic
He
Vatnik.
just like reads whatever he sees on Twitter, and that's somehow like Tucker's next viewpoint is.
Yeah, basically, yeah, yeah. But I mean, yeah, Ted Cruz is that. And I mean, yeah, whatever these people say, it's just like it's not good enough, and it never will be. I mean, he says Ted Cruz says that he was elected to that position because of that. Well, I agree with him. I think he was, and I think before he says anything that may resonate to us to whatever degree, well, I think we should remember him saying stuff like that and understand that that's his main modus operandi, than rather than anything that Tucker or Vance or Trump or whoever might say, that may resonate with us. We've got to consider who these people actually are and what the establishment that is actually governing the United States of America. And it's not America first. And I will confess though, I've been to people listening to this now and to the replay gang. I've perhaps been rather glib, or a bit too yeah, loose with how I have described alternatives and what we actually do about the situation. I would say I've always said become rich and become successful and influential and popular. Whatever that, if you can see a way, if you know but all that, I digress. All that is really for if you're kind of a brilliant person of exceptionally creative, exceptionally high IQ, exceptionally talented and gifted and handsome and
I'm sure
whatever.
that's all of our viewers, right? Surely.
No, no, certainly it is. They're definitely on that side of the bell curve. But not everybody's. If you're like that, by the way, if that's singing or dancing or um, or if singing, dancing, or if that's in fashion, or or in art, it doesn't, go for it. If you're into music or uh, whatever it may be, as long as it's a position of influence and you recognize the same things that we are recognizing, just go for it. If it doesn't matter if it's fashion or whatever. I see a lot of that. Like a lot of people these days like to pose as like, I'm gonna drink my beer and I'm gonna, Matt Walsh, I'm gonna drink my beer and smoke a cigar and wear like a suit and or wear what is it, the checkered shirts that the lumberjacks used to wear and all this stuff. And it's just like, yeah, it's just a LARP basically. But anyway, I digress. I digress. That yeah, I mean, whatever you're brilliant in and whatever you can make work to achieve a some sort of high standing in society, absolutely go for it, and don't be ashamed of that. But let's face it, not everybody can do that, and I just kind of wanted to, refine what I used to say. Like, obviously, I can't just say become rich and successful, and everybody will go ahead, because everybody would go ahead and do that, right? But not everybody can do that, right? So if you're not someone that maybe doesn't know what they want to do with their life, or isn't particularly skewed one way or another, or whatever, you're kind of more average in what you can do, then just honestly, like, become just go into get into uni and get like a political science degree, and just and whatever political science degree, bachelor of arts, and just go into that, and get a job in the government, and encourage your friends to, or anybody else to, because I think, if we in the US, if they could just have like 1% of aware, nationalistically minded young men to get into the Republican, into the GOP, or even, why not, another 1% of going straight into the Democrat Party, they get their political science degree, and get into that, then I imagine the changes that could quickly be made, if we just had a lot of these people, and you don't have to be particularly smart to get involved with the government, and from what I understand, it's quite government work can be quite a cushy job.
Yeah,
So I would just, I just want to, like, I always used to say to you guys, to my audience, just become rich, become successful. But then I was like, hold on, Gilbert, like, that's not really, that's not really, like, not everybody can do that. So I would just say people like me, who are more like average, and just get a political science degree, and with whatever interests you, and get a government job, and connect with people in the government like you, or connect with people in uni. I'm sure there's a lot of people like them, who have these same ideas. I've certainly met them myself, and just do that. And if we could get all our young men getting these degrees, and getting them positions in the government, you know, it would be a clean sweep, as long as they're nationalistically minded. But it would be, that sort of reform is possible, but we just need the people who are hip, who are aware, to do that, and to get involved like that. So that's, yeah, it's I don't expect everybody to become the next I don't know, the next, who made McAfee,
yeah.
John McAfee, or the next Elon Musk, or the next Bill Gates, or whatever. If there is anybody like that listening, to go for it. But
Yeah, I
if
think
you're just
Elon
like,
Musk listens to our show. I think that's fair.
yeah, exactly right. Yeah, or Barron Trump or something. But yeah, if you're not like any of that, if you're just kind of like average like me, then just get a pol sci degree, and aim for a job in government, and connect with other people, and yeah, and that's what I'd say about that. And that's how we can, as well as withholding your vote from, if they're Americans, withholding your vote from parties who don't do, you know what they should be doing, like the Republicans. With in New Zealand, we're a bit more lucky in terms of choice. We have NZ first, um, but in any case, yeah, that, as well as that, yeah, you should orient yourself that way, if you're a young guy, and you don't know what to do, and yeah, and you can do very well in that position, and you'll be very looked after by the government, and they have some good perks, some good benefits, and yeah. But in any case, and just be likable once you're amongst
That's sort
those
of like the
peers.
top. That's sort of like the top personality trait anyone can have. Just be likable and don't be like a spurg.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's sort of,
totally.
it's like step number one.
Yeah, yeah.
That's,
You don't have to impress like adults or anything. You don't have to like go like red pill, them, or show how bait, and even with people who you may meet, you may go, oh, this guy gets it, and you reveal your power level to them, and you're both like, okay, this guy's on the same page as me. um you don't have to be like the most based, and just chillax, relax about it, and just talk about real and practical things, and how you can make a difference to the immigration, and to, yeah, all manner of things, really, to defense, to whatever, um, and to free speech, to rising tech oligopoly, and all these sorts of things. And yeah, just be likable to, especially to the older people. If you can be more likable to them, they will they will reward you more, and yeah, become a name and a face. Yeah, Hector's right about that. So yeah, I just really want to get that across, because I thought about that the other day, and I went, ah, gosh, that's I I should be more, I should um talk to everybody. I should cater for everyone, to people who, are brilliant but not so brilliant, as well as, people who may listen, who do have, you, you know um, ideas of grandeur for their life that they feel they can achieve. But yeah, but because, yeah, let's face it, we can't all just become a Bill Gates, or a Baron Trump tomorrow, right? It's just not, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Not everybody's like that. So I just really want to get that across. But yeah. So sorry, Hector. We kind of derailed with that. Did you want to
No, well, you
go?
covered that pretty well. I mean, that tangent at least. But just with the strikes, so there's been a bit of controversy, or at least like conflicting statements about whether these strikes have been effective or not. What do you think the evidence points towards? Has it been, mostly superficial damage, or has the Iranian nuclear program been sent back, years? Well, what do you think the evidence points towards there?
Well, it seems like now. So a couple of days back, the evidence seemed to suggest that the damage was really inconsequential and of no real effect. Now, a couple of days later, it seems to suggest that all the info we're getting seems to suggest that actually there was some quite significant damage, and many important people were actually killed in these strikes. And there has been analysis of high-res satellite imagery that apparently seems to suggest this. I'm still, I like to wait a little bit more for these things, but um,
It's hard to
for,
tell because it's all underground facilities, right? So you can't
yeah,
just get satellite images. You sort of have to go off what the intel agencies are saying. Uh,
yeah,
but it seemed like Army intelligence early on was saying that it was potentially not effective, but now the CIA and Israel, and I think even a little bit from Iran itself, has been saying these were at least somewhat effective.
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so I think what we're getting now is that it was actually very effective, and they have analyzed stuff like the dust that has been emitted from the hole in the ground, which was built into the mountainside. Because of the pulverization of the blast, the concrete actually was exhumed by the entrance and spread out along the ground, as one point of analysis. I think it's that very picture there that you've got. But
This one?
and yeah, from what I can, my screen's a bit tiny. I need a, yeah, yeah, that's that. So I believe this is sorry, I'm a bit tired. This is Bordeaux, and you
Yeah,
see,
that's
like,
Bordeaux. Yeah,
yeah, that this is there's sort of a white
white dust.
yeah, a white dust. Yeah, that's right, and that's supposed to be the concrete. There was another site where it's supposed to have a similar thing, and the instrument, the tools used to do this were B2 bombers, B2 stealth
Yeah, they
bombers.
flew out of like Missouri. They flew across the entire planet to
Mm,
drop these bunker buster bombs, which is sort of interesting because there was a bit of like I guess you'd say like counterintelligence there because there was like American like aircraft carriers moving towards Iran, but then they just used B-2 bombers anyway. So there was a
mm.
bit of deception there, I guess you could say, military deception.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. So that's interesting, and so Yeah. Another thing is that apparently the missiles or the munitions used by the B-2 stealth bombers are laser guided. They have laser
Oh yeah,
guided,
of course they are. So they got.
and
You'd think they'd be accurate to like they're going to hit what they want to hit to the like meter.
or even some of this stuff is like this satellite resolution that we're seeing is like centimeter accuracy in terms of pixels. So this is why we're getting such a clear um even in the 19 the late 1970s we had satellite spatial resolution to like l- view zoom in on a like on a penny or something,
Yeah,
or
probably.
like see the details of like a magazine that a woman was reading. Like there was that ability even all the way back then. So yeah, that laser guided munitions and yeah to the meter. And I believe one of the holes or one of the entrances was about 5 feet wide or something like that. But probably a lot wider. Um, and that so they were able to actually guide it inside the facility where
We could just see
yeah
these holes are actually quite large, like they're meters across. These
mm, mm,
these
mm,
holes here, so it's actually quite impressive because it's like yeah, you have to get it pinpointed to like the GPS coordinates, but also to like the depth, so that they're
mm,
actually effective when they explode and actually
yeah
cause damage and not just make a hole in the bottom of a mountain or something.
mm,
Which would
mm,
also probably cause like at least like seismic damage, but you want to actually blow it up.
absolutely yeah so apparently a lot of scientists and senior military officials were the ones yeah they were neutralized to put it nicely I guess but
Yeah, it's sort of
they
interesting that the early army intelligence was potentially saying that the strikes were not effective. I don't know if that's just
mm,
because the army wanted to do it again. Like maybe there was a bit of like politics playing there or something, or the armed forces wanted to do it again, but I have no
mm.
clue.
Well, yeah, not effective, and yeah, but perhaps they wanted to explore other avenues
Mm.
to attack Iran. So, because they're really keen to, to neutralize Iran. It's interesting that they were above nuclear enrichment required for just civilian purposes, which is I believe is 20%.
Oh yeah, they're up to like 60 supposedly, so they were
I think
creeping
even
up.
more toward 90, was it
Well, 90
not?
is what you
80 to
need.
90
No,
level.
like 95 is what you need, I believe, for effective nuclear weapons. So
Okay, yeah.
and above 20 is considered like you don't need that for civilian purposes.
Mm. So yeah, there was so yeah, and apparently they were talking about they were transporting the centrifuges, which are the devices that spin around.
Yeah,
Uh,
and actually used to enrich the uranium.
yeah, they apparently I've heard you can't actually move those around with trucks. You need a specialized vehicle to be able to move those. So the trucks moving in and out of these facilities that have been um, observed that they perhaps were carrying some other implements to and from the base, perhaps uranium. But anyway, that's
Yeah, it's thought that the uranium itself that was enriched up to about 60, maybe even higher, was moved out of these facilities because it was actually sort of obvious that the United States was about to strike them.
yeah,
Like, if
yeah.
Trump maybe just like what didn't like didn't run his mouth for like a week before, like maybe nothing, maybe they would have actually got some of it
Yeah, he was hoping that they would that
back
they
down.
would come,
Yeah.
yeah, come to the table back down, but it's just not. I mean, how do the Iranians really? Yeah, they're just that they yeah they've I think the Iranians have really tried as best they could to try and curry favor with the United States, but the US isn't just having it from what I've been hearing, from what I've been reading. So it's well we'll have to see what the JCPA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, what the Europeans do with that.
Yes, because
um,
the European nations are still a part of it.
yeah
Just the United States pulled out of it, which is a major factor for Iran pulling out of their nuclear inspections quite recently, and
Mm,
increasing their rhetoric since the US pulled out of the agreement.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. We'll see how long the ceasefire lasts. We'll see what Trump continues to do, but I think it's kind of what do you think will happen? Uh,
Well, this is what I hope happens: is that you get you get a ceasefire brokered where both sides commit to some sort of concessions. Iran stops its nuclear program, Israel stops its military campaigns, and the United States can focus its military elsewhere in the world where I'd say it's more pressingly needed. But I think that's a
yeah.
that's a fairly that's a fairly optimistic view. That's what I hope happens. I don't know if that's actually going to happen.
Yeah, I would complete agreement. I would like that too, and I think a lot of people would hope that that happens. But yeah, yeah, I would.
What I think is actually going to happen is they're going to negotiate for maybe like a month or a couple months, and then Israel will start striking Iran again, and then
Yeah,
we'll be back to where we started.
yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I would even say possibly within the span of weeks,
Hmm.
because they really do want to. They are pressing very hard. I mean, let's not forget Netanyahu has a lot on the line
Oh
in
yeah,
terms of.
well, I mean, I mean, ever since like these massive military campaigns have started, there was mass protests against Netanyahu. There was criminal cases against him. It's
Mm.
just all of this seems to be in favor of his popularity every
Yeah.
single time one of these strikes happens. And then, yeah, you've got Trump calling for the corruption trials against Netanyahu to stop, which I think is just crazy. It's like
Yeah.
this is internal Israeli, affairs, and he's
Yeah.
telling these corruption officials to stop investigating Netanyahu, which is,
Yeah.
just sort of insane. It's like this is Israelis, this is the Israel's problem,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. 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 It's pretty bad. It's pretty, dare I say, it's quite cucked. But
Yeah.
what do you do? I mean, you've got to call it out for. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, but we'll see. Yeah. I mean, it seems like. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, a lot of this is hanging on the line for Netanyahu, so he wants to stay in power and ensure that this can go on in some capacity. And it looks like the IDF minister, as we mentioned earlier, wants it to implement the Lebanon model in Iran whenever they see fit, basically, to do so. And yeah, but
And that's just sort of crazy that Israel's making these sort of public statements when they're meant to be in a ceasefire negotiation. Like,
Mm. Isn't it so interesting? Back to the damage of the facilities, it's so interesting that they were so sure before that no damage was done, and now they're like, oh yeah, that damage was actually done. Because even Israeli
yeah,
sources were saying like,
yeah. Well, it's
yeah,
almost like they wanted it to continue. They wanted more
yeah,
American strikes on Israel.
yeah, but somewhere along the line, the intelligence, I guess, got through that. Yeah. Anyway, they something switched it up, but
Well, I mean,
yeah,
well, yeah. I guess if you actually look at it, I mean, I'm not some expert on dust particles, but when you point that out, that actually does make sense. I mean, obviously, there's been hits. These aren't just explosions on the surface. These massive missiles did get into the
yeah,
facilities. They didn't just blow up on the surface and nothing happened. So
right.
obviously, there's going to be some damage.
You can imagine the debris that is sort of floating around and then floats out of the holes. You can just see with the texture of the mountain, it
Mm.
changes. Like that's obviously the white concrete and I guess that blue stuff maybe.
Yeah, and this
But
like the mountain's made out of chalk. I don't think that's like
yeah,
I don't think that's what the mountain. I don't think that's debris from the actual rock.
yeah. That's right. That's right. So yeah. Netanyahu has a lot on the line, and so like so does Israel. I guess too because
Well,
they
again, I mean, there's still the ongoing war in Gaza, and Israel just, as I've said from the start, has no plan for actual like a peace, some sort of peace plan there. It's just
mm,
military occupation and non-stop bombings. There's no actual plan there.
Yeah, that's insane. It's totally ridiculous what's going off. But yeah, we're meant to believe that the IDF are these, warriors, and they can handle anything. That the romanticization. Anyway, that's something completely different. But
Well, I mean, there's been thousands of casualties. I don't think that's particularly true.
yeah,
So,
I just remember hearing all these like people from the conservative aisle just saying like, oh, it was like a real romanticization of the like Mossad special agents and the IDF, like they were some special elite desert warriors or whatever. And it's just like, well,
that's
we
not
don't.
really true. I mean, they're more technologically advanced than, Hamas, which has been under sanctions since, for 25 years. So they're not going to have the best in terms of technology and weaponry.
Mm,
But
mm.
yeah, the IDF definitely aren't some sort of like Ubermensch super soldiers.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. I just, yeah. So anyway, but I mean, talking about this, I mean, it's as well as I believe it's also important that people understand like how far this really goes back, because many people view this as like the culmination of United States and Israeli foreign policy in the Middle East. This was not always the United States goal. This is actually somewhat of a recent phenomena in terms of its foreign policy toward the Middle East. Um, and I mean, in this, it's important that we understand the clean break memo. People, I think a lot of people probably listening to this already understand what that is, so I won't go into it too much. But I guess I can give a little bit of a description. So I mean, basically, it was a document by, let's see, it was Richard Pearl, David Wormser, and Fife. Can't remember his. Sorry, my it's been like a long time since I've reviewed this document. Richard Pearl and David Fife, I think it was. But it was, yeah, a clean break, a new strategy for securing the realm. And basically, it was a policy document prepared in 1996 by these people for Benjamin Netanyahu, who was then the Prime Minister of Israel. And it explained a new approach to solving Israel's security problems in the Middle East. And funnily enough, it emphasized Western values. It sounds very much like what is parroted by the GOP, people like Matt Walsh and uh, Charlie Kirk. We're doing everything for Western values or something. But yeah, it's been criticized for advocating like an aggressive policy towards the Middle East, and yeah, I mean, the main tenets were, this idea of like transcending. I think there was a certain point where the Israelis realized, well, we want security, but everything to the north of our border and beyond makes us feel unsafe. So we need to sort of transcend the other um, entities in this region. So it recommended that it abandon the traditional approach of exchanging land for peace with its neighbors. Um, called for Israel to actively shape the regional balance of power in its favor. Um, yeah, targeting the removal of Saddam Hussein in Iraq,
Yes.
and strategies for containing Syria, including proxy warfare.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
at the moment, Israel's like occupying parts of Syria now, like
yeah,
beyond
that's
the
right.
Golan Heights. So,
I mean, this has all come to uh, its eventuation, and I can't really. I can't go into this in depth. I wish I reviewed this more, but yeah, this is it also encouraged a stronger, more self-reliant relationship between the U.S. and Israel, of course, to do all of those prescribed uh, fundamental tenets of this document. So yeah, this has been described as a neoconservative Middle East blueprint policy, and yeah, it's been the debate of a lot of impact on regional stability and U.S. foreign policy. So this is and what's interesting is that all these men, Richard Pearl, David Fife, and Wormser, they all went to work in the George W. Bush administration, and
Yeah, funny that.
yeah, yeah, that's maybe this is actually something to get into in another show. We should probably continue this Iranian trajectory, but perhaps we should actually just do a whole show on this actually, and because what's in this document is very important, and there's a lot of details that I just don't know if we have the time to get into now.
Probably not
But
now. Yeah, we'll
I
we'll
just
keep it sort of short today.
yeah. Because I mean, people, but okay. Look, I'll just say this: make sure you look into that because this is basically dictated the foreign policy of the United States in regards to the Middle East to date, and this is sort of the culmination of that policy, which I think most of us can agree, especially with the hypocrisy that these successive administrations have had toward Ukraine since Obama.
Yes.
It's like it's kind of like just enrages me. It's
Yeah,
like
well, but the Obama, it's just funny how people forget this, but the Obama refused to give Ukrainians any sort of weapons while they were, had their first invasion in
yeah,
2014, 2015. And
mm,
then it was actually Trump that actually started those, weapons transfers, weapon sales up of, javelins and
mm,
uh, modern anti-tank missiles and weapons and stuff like that. Rifles. It started off small, but at least it was better than nothing.
yeah. It should have been a lot more. I mean, Obama should have been doing that, and Trump, kicked it off. It should have continued. Biden should have. But Biden didn't hardly did anything. They didn't need rifles. They needed more of the javelins and all kinds of things to defend themselves. But of course, and now Trump is doing that. In fact, it's even worse. They took away their eyes, basically their sensors, to see where the Russian regiments were coming from, and that caused a lot of complications. So it just there's no good excuse for it, really. Why they shouldn't? There's so many, like, America has everything to gain to support the Ukrainians and nothing to. I mean, that's how you know something's really wrong. And while they're
Yeah, you
supporting,
got Ted Cruz saying he's elected to defend Israel, and then
yeah,
at the same time saying Ukraine doesn't deserve like any weapons or support. It's like, what's going
yeah,
on here?
what's going on here? Yeah, exactly right. And while we're involved in, gosh, it's such a mess. Yeah, and I mean this is a concern for us in the Pacific because we need that assurance that America is going to come in there and defend our allies and defend us. Uh, and that is involved in,
Yeah, provide a counter to China, and it's objectively, I'd say, negative influence in the region.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and Ukraine is actually, I believe, important to that, given that they found, China's positioning itself as an Arctic power, even though they're nowhere near the Arctic,
yeah, that's sort
and
of weird.
sort of weird. And there's Chinese operations occurring within the Russian assault on Ukraine. They've captured many Chinese soldiers, something like 200 of them, and and of course North Korean soldiers. So this isn't just Russia. This is Russia, China, North Korea that are attempting. They're not doing very well at all, thankfully. But it
They're
could have
doing
been
about as good as they were about a year ago, which is
yeah,
not the
get,
greatest.
getting up to the fourth year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important that we have this. So but I'll just say this furthermore to 1996 with the clean break memo. Again, make sure you really understand. You research everything around that. That we need to do a full show on this sometime soon. Um, but back in 1950s, there was the Dimona reactor dispute, which lasted from the 50s to 1963. Um, it's important to go over these facts. Israel began secretly developing the Dimona nuclear reactor in the Negev desert with the French, and the U.S. discovered this, and JFK became very concerned about nuclear proliferation in the Middle East, right? Because, well, that was part of the America's policy to stop the proliferation of nuclear weapons, and it was actually in the preceding president. Um, with the preceding president Dwight D. Eisenhower, as I'm sure you'll all know, the yeah, basically what happened was that he, toward the latter end of his presidency, he became aware of that they were enriching uranium at the Dimona reactor, and he only understood this late in the game, and he warned JFK that, look, they're doing this. You need to be on this because they're doing this in the Middle East, and this could present a severe problem for us for the future of the United States. Of course, we want to maintain balance and stability in the Middle East amongst all nations. We don't want a spark to catalyze, um, a turmoil of disputes all over the Middle East. So we need to basically make sure that something like this does not continue and does not cause complications and cause something to proliferate. And here we are now, right? After what, 30 plus years of disastrous foreign policy in the Middle East. Um, in any case, um, so and it's important to say that Dwight D. Eisenhower, from an America First perspective, his foreign policy made a lot of sense from an First perspective, which was basically opposing communist revolution in the Middle East, um, and yeah, and ensuring that these communist regimes, usually, well, these communist regimes supported by Russia, don't take over nations in the Middle East. And there's actually a very lengthy history of communist revolution in the Middle East, a lengthy history of red Islamic revolutions that the former king of Iran himself acknowledged. He personally noticed the agitation in his own country with Marxist Muslims. That he said something that was quite new. And then, of course, you had the Muslim group in Afghanistan, led by the the resistance led by Ahmad Shah Massoud, and he recognized this as well, and of course fought against the Russians that were trying to take over, which was interesting because there was an ulterior motive for the Soviets to do that, as Trevor Loudon has analyzed. But in Afghanistan, which we've mentioned before. But yeah, I mean, Islam is particularly susceptible to this kind of influence because they don't have quite the same um, traditions of curiosity, which, and of course, communism is all about manipulating your enemy. So that we've since seen it sort of proliferate throughout the region. But anyway, that's besides the point. Nevertheless, sorry, I digress. Dwight D. Eisenhower's Middle East policy, known as the Eisenhower Doctrine, focused on preventing Soviet influence and maintaining stability in the region, uh, primarily through economic and military aid. The doctrine authorized the president to use military force if requested by any Middle Eastern country threatened by communist aggression, and Eisenhower was notified about the Dimona nuclear facility in Israel and warned JFK, who carried out successive inspections on these facilities, something that both of them were deeply concerned about. So that was the used to be in Eisenhower's time and in JFK's time um, that was the foreign policy goal of America in the Middle East, which makes sense to me, was simply to oppose communist Russian aggression. uh, and oppose, you know, communism gaining a foothold in the Middle East. And the events. So Dwight D. Eisenhower warned JFK about this, that this was occurring, and JFK was deeply concerned, as Eisenhower was. And in 1963, Kennedy demanded that Israel allow regular U.S. inspections of the Dimona facility. In a letter to Ben Gurion in May 1963, Kennedy insisted on transparency and said that the U.S. relations with Israel would be affected if they refused. And an excerpt from this letter: "This government's commitment to and support of Israel could be seriously jeopardized if it should be thought that we were unable to obtain reliable information on a subject as vital to peace as the question of nuclear weapons development." And that was JFK to Ben Gurion, May 18th to 1963. And it's important to recognize, like, that he tried to inspect the facilities many times. They were refused. They were, they put them into fake facilities where there were fake switches and, operational equipment that was like an Israeli take on a Potemkin village, essentially. These fake nuclear facilities, they took the scientists to tour. And Ben Gurion made a lot of fun of JFK and was very disrespectful toward him. So yeah, he strongly linked continued U.S. support to Israel. Uh, that was dependent on the compliance with nuclear inspections. So um, at that time, it was kind of U.S. aid to Israel was modest. Most U.S. aid then was humanitarian and economic, not military. The interesting thing about this was Ben Gurion resigned shortly after. Ben Gurion resigned in 1963, just weeks after Kennedy's firm letters to him. Um, so this has caused a lot of speculation, regarding the time of his uh, resignation as prime minister. And
Hmm.
after JFK, yeah, interesting, right? Very
Makes you
suspicious.
think.
Really makes you think. It does. And JFK's assassination marks a U.S. foreign policy shift. After JFK's assassination in November of 1963, Lyndon B. Johnson took a much softer approach, one might say, toward Israel's nuclear program, basically effectively tolerating its opaque behavior in terms of the nuclear weapons development in Israel. And so JFK did pressure Ben Gurion and Levi Eshkol over nuclear transparency, strongly implying U.S. Israel relations and support were at stake. Uh, and yeah, the confrontation of the Dimona reactor was the most serious U.S. Israel disagreement prior to 1967, and some of JFK's stances, was the last serious U.S. attempt to stop Israel's nuclear ambitions. And there's a lot of interesting um, sort of detail again around this with the letters to Ben Gurion and Eshkol. And sorry, Hector, just to continue a little bit more. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for
I'll
it.
just yeah, I'll try wrap this up. So the Lyndon B. Johnson administration marked a major turning point in U.S. foreign policy toward Israel and the broader Middle East, especially when compared to the more cautious and balanced approaches of Eisenhower and JFK, which we've identified as being, well, as far as I'm concerned, perfectly America first. So Eisenhower, um, in comparison to Lyndon B. Johnson, Eisenhower was strategically neutral, uh, and in the Suez Crisis in 1956, he strongly opposed the joint invasion of Egypt by Britain, France, and Israel. He forced Israel to withdraw from the Sinai and pressured the UK and France diplomatically, and that kind of made Israel realize that and the UK and France realized we can't really do anything without the United States, which made them think a little bit about that, about how they, what they can really do realistically in the region. Um, so he promoted Arab nationalism and pan-Arab unity with some limits within reason to counter Soviet influence. Maintained military aid restrictions on Israel, tried to remain neutral broker between Arabs and Israelis, and he was worried about antagonizing Arab states and losing access to oil and regional allies,
Mm.
of course, because they were worried about the spread of communism. So this was a much more balanced approach. And similarly, JFK, uh, he was again friendly but tough on nuclear issues. So he improved diplomatic ties with Israel, increased economic aid, but remained focused on nuclear nonproliferation, which both Eisenhower and JFK were concerned about. Um, he pressured Israel to open Zimona reactor to U.S. inspections, saw Israel's nuclear ambitions as a threat to global stability, um, and maintained arms sales limits, such as anti-aircraft missiles, but no offensive weapons. Um, he was actually more sympathetic to Israel than Eisenhower, but he was firm in opposing nuclear weapons and also committed to maintaining a regional balance in the region. Now, by contrast, LBJ after 1963 um, had this is where things change, and this is where we are today. Basically, since then, as strategic realignment towards Israel. Um, LBJ's policy dramatically shifted toward a pro-Israel tilt, laying the foundation for a U.S.-Israel special relationship that we all see today. So, major military aid begins. This is the first U.S. president to approve large-scale arms to Israel, starting with tanks and fighter jets. Shifted U.S. policy from restraining Israeli military strength to actively enhancing it. The Six-Day War was a major turning point. The U.S. gave diplomatic cover to Israel before and after the war. Although the U.S. did not encourage the war, LBJ did not stop Israel from launching preemptive strikes. And that, by the way, is a part of the doctrine of the clean break memo, that they should be able to preemptively
Strike
strike.
whoever they want with no consequences. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, they're allowed to. He didn't stop them from doing that. Um, and after the war, Israel captured the West Bank, Gaza, the Golan Heights, and Sinai. Um, and LBJ, on their behalf, resisted international pressure for Israel to immediately return those territories. And he, as quoted, he famously quoted, "Israel will not be alone so long as I am president." So he was totally this doctrine of trying to maintain balance amongst all players in the region was now completely lopsided and totally weighted on Israel's on the side of Israel, um, and it's just continued that way. It appears. So you have then you have the
Well, I mean, you
very
also have LBJ. I mean, that's when, like blatantly the U.S. Liberty incident happened, and they're just
you
like
you
covered, like
you
dozens
read
of
my mind.
Americans dead, and it was the president covered for like
You
the
read my
Israelis.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you totally read my mind. I was just gonna say that the USS. Yeah, so you totally read my mind just then, Hector. The USS Liberty incident in 1967, um, when Israeli forces attacked the U.S. Navy ship, um, the 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 Navy ship, the USS Liberty. LBJ accepted Israel's apology, paid reparations, and the U.S. did not retaliate or deeply investigate, which cemented the perception of um, that. Well, yeah, I mean, it did, but it did cement the perception of U.S. favoritism toward Israel. But I mean, that's I mean, what else do you really call it? I mean, it's I mean, yeah, I just. But anyway, it's oh, I digress. The policy toward Arab states was that continued economic aid to and development aid to countries like Jordan and Egypt. Um, they were worried about Soviet influence in Egypt, Syria, and Iraq, but increasingly prioritized Israel as a strategic ally against Soviet aligned Arab regimes. So it's interesting that fundamentally the US policy shifted to viewing Israel as a strategic Cold War ally, granting it just an unprecedented level of military and diplomatic support. Um, but that, of course, you may like to refer to our interview with Jeff K to see that. Isn't it interesting how they go from it goes from regional neutrality amongst all states in the area to Israel is the only sole strategic Cold War ally in the area, and only it's along with I guess
Turkey, I guess. Yeah.
yeah Turkey and Jordan can only be realized. Isn't that interesting
Mm.
that there's this the the Cold War seems to be um, it seems to be viewed through the lens of not what is good for the United States, but what is good in terms of Israel. And it
Yes.
just seems like they're slapping something on there rather than actually acknowledging the holistic threat of Soviet influence throughout the Middle Eastern region. It seems to be kind of what Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh are sort of interested in doing now, really. Which is we say we're doing something, but actually this is our actual goal. Pure subterfuge.
Yeah, well, I mean, other states in the Middle East, such as, Jordan and Egypt, basically only get like their massive amounts of military aid because they take, pro-Israeli stances.
Yeah.
Like they get like a massive monetary benefit for
Mm.
taking these sort of stances.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, um, yeah. So I mean after LBJ, even before the clean break, after LBJ, yeah, this is when U.S. policy is decisively tilted towards Israel's um, favor, and yeah, this is the unshakable cornerstone of modern U.S.-Israel relations, and this is where we're at now. So it just goes to show, how it's amazing, like how quickly we went from something that benefited America and I would say benefited the world. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the
yeah.
way, especially the way Eisenhower went about it, that was a smart, sensible way to go about it because that was the real enemy. But it seems like, and then you can go into the events surrounding the JFK assassination, um, and then you can also not only just that, you can see how Russia was involved as well. Um, Again, refer to our Jeff K interview and refer to Western allies as well to see how there's a lot of strange things that go on between Israel and Russia, and even Israel and China. Um, and yeah, this is why I said earlier, the United States has since LBJ embarked on a quest to give rise to something that is not that will eventually grow stronger than them and devour them. And this is the whole problem. Like, this is what people are trying to like. I see a lot of people on X like make like it kind of does actually get a bit tiring to see like a lot of these retarded X accounts just say like I even hate to say it, but it's just like I don't know even know if I want to really ingratiate um give that any airtime, basically. But let's say there's some very simplistic thinkers who just like to say like, "Oh, it's these people, it's this," and it's like, yeah, okay, like sure, like whatever, like I mean, I wouldn't, I mean, I wouldn't like say it. I wouldn't say it like it's just retarded. Like, what else are you gonna say? Anything else? You know, like, and it's just the meme. It's like the memification of politics, which has given rise to a lot of like grug thinkers, and then like the conservatives see that, and then they go, "Oh, that look at all the anti-Semites everywhere," and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's just kind of like I'm sure like people would hear Hector and I saying this and call us they'd probably call us anti-Semites anyway. I would guess, you know, because you know, this quite clearly shows that well, we had a good foreign policy, you know, toward the Middle East beforehand, and it was beneficial to everybody. Everybody won, but you know, through analyzing these events, you can see just how tilted it was toward Israel, and the inflection point seems to be when Ben Gurion realized that he could not hide from JFK anymore, and that and yeah, he resigned, and then you know what happened not long after that, you know, very curious, and yeah, and this is why this has been subject to a lot of speculation, and I think rightfully so. It is very odd, and people really need to be aware of this timeline events and of the clean break memo, a new strategy for securing the realm, and even yeah, a new strategy for securing the realm.
It's like interesting title.
Yeah, interesting time. It sounds very yeah, like almost imperialist or very
Yeah.
world conquering.
It's not like, just peace, securing peace or anything like that. It's like the
Yeah,
realm. It's
yeah,
like very sort of arbitrary, like where the realm begins and where it ends.
that's right. That's yeah, that's a good way to put it. Actually, yeah, true. So yeah, it's this sudden shift and yeah, very yeah, and with the USS Liberty too. That was yeah. Anyway, these are shows that we can potentially do with you know, we've got a lot planned with other very
Very big brain thinkers.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So so that this is just the sort of stuff you, because a lot of people just focus on the here and the now, and they go rah rah rah, you know, and they can't see anything uh you know, beyond what is happening right now. But it's important to consider these events to understand why we're here right now, and what we're actually giving rise to. And I'm afraid to say, guys, that what the U.S. is helping give rise to is really nothing good, and it more unfortunately it is a way that the sort of morally emboldens our enemies, even though they are working hand in glove. Well, look, I should be professional. I'll say they're working. Um, there are some very strange. There are many very strange occurrences between the state of Israel and you know our more apparent enemies is what I'll say, and that there are many of them which just don't add up and shouldn't make anybody feel comfortable.
Yes.
So this is why we have to think of this, and you know certainly our realm, the Western realm that is not being secured. This is this is making our the Western realm very insecure, very problematic for us as Russia shifts throughout um, Eastern Europe and Africa and Asia, while China moves throughout Latin America and tries to breach the wider Pacific, and Israel moves throughout the Middle East and does deals with various nations surrounding them, and moves very aggressively throughout the region in other ways. So these are the empires or the realms that are being built while America and Europe cop most of the damage uh, done as a result of these disastrous foreign policy and general policy shifts.
Yes.
And as a consequence, we're on the receiving end of all of this where we really shouldn't be. And that's why I stress, like, when I said earlier, like, if you're not so like talented or gifted or whatever, like, it's like we really could use, like, many of you people getting political science degrees. We could really use you, and not just you by yourselves, but connecting with down to earth, good, polite people, other people who have these pol sci degrees, who are in government, and you're making friends with them, meeting up with them over a coffee, over a glass of wine or whatever, and just building these relationships and structures as all of these people in Russia, China, Israel, as they do to us, as they're doing in the very Trump administration. There are, of course, all these agents from these countries operating, but there are no there are no Western spies operating, or not that we know. There are far fewer in Russia and China and in Israel than the other way around.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to take it upon yourself to do what is necessary so that we can survive.
Yes.
And we really need you guys to do that.
All right. Well, I think we should start wrapping up. We've been going for nearly 2 hours.
Sorry, Hector. Do you want to say anything else?
Oh,
Yeah, apologies. Yeah,
no, that's.
you say something, Hector. You say something.
Oh, no, I think you've covered a lot there. I think that's actually a lot of good historical context. We've covered the topical issues here. We've talked about Iran and our predictions for the future, what we hope happens, what we think will actually happen, the changing landscape. No doubt this is going to be a topic that's going to be covered in future episodes, potentially not a whole episode, but we'll touch on it as the situation develops. Hope everyone, yeah, I think that's basically it. I mean, I feel like we should just wrap up. I feel like
Okay.
we should start wrapping up. What do you,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, cool. All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm your host, Hector, and I'm here with Gilbert.
Okay.
Glad
Thanks for
you're,
listening, everybody.
yeah, thanks
Yep.
for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks everyone for watching the replay. We won't be streaming next week because I'm quite busy next week, but in the next couple of weeks, it shouldn't be over a month long wait this time. So in 2 or 3 weeks, we should do another episode. We should potentially get a really good guest on, maybe to cover more international, maybe even some more New Zealand topics. Hope you guys have enjoyed the show, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.
See you, everybody.